following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Good morning. It is Sunday, June 4th, 2023. School's out in a lot of places, but it's time here for a summer school best ball class. We're going to talk roster building, hopefully help you win some of the medium bucks in your best ball tournaments. We're going to talk that and some free agent prognostication right now here on Belly Up Fantasy Live.
Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees, and a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. There's the whistle. It's time to get going. How we doing, everybody? Good morning. Welcome into Belly Up Fantasy Live for today. Like we said, Sunday, June 4th, 2023. School's starting to wind down all over the place here. Kids are out and they're all over the place. So, watch yourself on the road because it means there's a ton of them out there right now. But we're going to do a summer school best ball class today. We haven't talked much best ball on the program yet. We focus a lot on dynasty. In season, we talk a lot of redraft, and in the run up to the season, we talk a lot of redraft. But we haven't talked a whole lot of best ball, and best ball is a real fun format. It's easily accessible format for a lot of people. Set and forget the Ron Popeil system of football, fantasy football. But we're going to talk a little bit of best ball today. We'll talk about some free agents later on too. But today we're going to focus on best ball. And how to get you set up for those tournaments so that you can have some success there. I am Chase Thornton, coming to you as always from the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar here. And we've already got a coffee bender cracked open because it's a little early. Thank you to my young boys who have been excited for their school to be out and who have been making my life a little interesting lately. But I am not alone. I am joined, as per usual, by Mr. Kevin Wilson. Welcome in, Kevin. How are we doing today?
We are doing great, and I know you got the coffee going on, but, we have no restrictions over here, so I'm going to break open some Mike's Harder Strawberry this morning.
Uh-oh. Harder. There you go.
Yeah, harder. Not just hard, harder.
The strawberry. There we go. That's what I'm talking
about. There we have
it.
So we're going to see how that's going to work out right here. And everything else is doing well. And it's summer. And so, as you talked about, I don't think I've ever spoken publicly in any form about best ball. So it's going to be interesting to get into that. I will say that for me personally, best ball is probably my least favorite fantasy platform. Because I'm a tinkerer, I like to, as you well know, now you're in our fantasy baseball league. In fact, you and I are going head to head right now.
Yes, we are.
And I like to turn over the bottom of my roster and looking for ways to improve the matchups and everything else. In best ball, you can't do none of that.
Yeah, so, and you bring up a good point there. For those of you who aren't familiar out there, maybe with best ball or just started fantasy or have only been locked into one format or the other for your entire tenure, your career, shall we say, in fantasy football, best ball is a format where, it's exactly what it says. It's best ball. Like Kevin said, I'm the same way, Kevin. I like to I in redraft, in dynasty, I'm always trying to turn over the bottom of the roster and continually replace those guys with guys who are better. If you can continually take the bottom of the roster and make it better. Yeah.
So,
they're the bottom for a reason.
Right. And so in best ball, of course, none of that's going on because, you do your draft, then you're locked in.
Yeah. Like I said, it's the Ron Popeil of fantasy football format.
Right.
Set
so
it and
perhaps if you're new to the entire fantasy football, game, and you're not sitting there going, man, I don't know how I'm going to make moves or whatever. You just have to figure out your draft, do it, and then just maybe you can learn about some players, going into other formats and stuff like that. So I could see that portion of it, and also we need to mention best ball, because in over here in our company, for the third straight year we are supporting Alex Lemonade Stand, which gives out lots of does a lot of things for kids and people that kids are seriously ill or have problems and all that sort of thing. And so Belly Up is supporting that. So if you want to get involved with best ball and help children in need, there's nothing more you can do but get over to the Belly Up Fantasy website. There's a spot right there up at the top, and you can click on that, find out everything you need to know about how the way things work in the leagues, and how Alex's lemonade stand works out, what they do for kids, and get involved, help the kid.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you mentioned, it's a format where you don't have to worry about if you don't want to worry about.
If you don't want to worry, which I don't have a problem with that. So
it's all draft. Best ball is all draft. You draft, and for a lot of guys and girls and people who play fantasy football, the draft is the best part of the season anyway. They like the drafting.
Right. If you're, I get that. I get that.
How can I build my roster? How can I, yeah. And it's a fun hour or two, several hours of excitement there, and seeing who you can get and who you can pick up. And honestly, I like doing mock drafts for some of that in the run up to the season.
I've been who knows how many mock drafts I've already done.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the heck of it, as soon as the draft gets over with and the actual draft, and so now you go crazy doing drafts all day long and whatever format you want to do them in. So,
but some of the fun of the best ball, though,
mock drafts, yeah.
Some of the fun of best ball is using it as an opportunity to, in a way, live mock draft, if you want to term it in a specific way. There, a lot of guys and girls will use best ball early season drafts, because we're drafting best ball right now. People will draft best ball this early in the season. You and I are both proponents, and we have said this before. We do not like drafting redraft leagues early in the year.
This is especially silly to me in best ball, because, as you said, you lock in your roster, and if you play best ball in your draft tomorrow, half your team could be off NFL rosters by the time the season starts.
That's part of the challenge of it. But a lot of people will use those best ball drafts as a way to kind of prepare and almost, like I said, live mock draft for the regular season. You can get a good feel right now on who's going early or who's being maybe overvalued, undervalued, that kind of thing. You can get a little bit of a read on that right now. And there's no risk factor involved. It's a way to get skin in the game,
especially if no money is involved.
Right. But if
there's money involved, I'm not doing best ball drafts tomorrow. I'm not doing it.
Well, there you. That's Kevin's take on it. Kevin is a very much a early season draft opponent. Yep.
Across all formats, across all of that, but especially if I'm putting money down,
I like to have all the information.
I want to protect my investment.
I like to have all the information I can have. But if you can do best ball drafts, you can enter them all over the place, and you can a lot of them you can do for free.
Different ways to play it, whether it's one quarterback or two quarterbacks, super flex, whatever it might be. So
it's a way to do some research without having to, then worry about, okay, well, I've got to maintain this roster. I'll see, well, like you just said, after you draft that roster, it's going to be what it's going to be. And the format then is such that the site, whoever the host site is, or whoever the host is for your best ball league, will automatically take your top scoring players every week. You don't have to worry about, well, do I need to play the matchup with this receiver this week, or should I go with this other guy? Because whoever scores the most is who's going to end up in your lineup. Your lineup isn't set until after the games have been played.
After the games are played, that's right.
And that way you're guaranteed to get the highest score possible for your team every week. Now, when we talk about best ball, we talk about setting up your lineups and setting up, building your roster, a lot of the rules are going to be the same in terms of what you normally do to prepare for a draft, in terms of doing your research, knowing the format of the league. Is it two quarterbacks? It's super flex. How many roster spots do you have?
All that sort of thing.
Yep.
And how many starting spots do running backs get typically?
What are the scoring rules? Is it 4 points per passing touchdown?
2,
6
is
points?
it 3 wide receivers? Wide receivers are usually 3. And
a lot of those are the same.
Right throughout best ball.
Right.
But still, you need to know.
Yeah,
what you're
you have to go. You have to
into.
go in with that knowledge. You have to go in with that
You have
understanding
to.
so that you can prepare yourself the best way possible. If you don't know what you're getting into before you get into it,
I must be honest, I have done that in the past, especially
I
when
think
it
we've
comes
all
to
done it.
fantasy. Because like I said, I'm late to the fantasy game, and compared to a lot of people, and so I just sit down and draft, and okay, what did I just do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How are we sitting now?
Right. So, but like I said, if there's no money involved and you're a rookie at this, go ahead and do it. There's no, there's no loss. There's no, skin off your nose or whatever. But
And
so,
honestly, a lot of the big tournaments that you hear of, and a lot of the, a lot of, especially this time of year, the early season draft formats are going to be best ball. So it's a format to familiarize yourself with. It's one more method. It's one more way to get yourself in the game. It's one more way to experience fantasy football, and participating in it can inform you and help you in other areas as well. Playing best ball will help you be a better redraft player. Playing best ball will help you be a better dynasty player. Playing best ball will help you be a better DFS player, the same way that playing DFS will make you a better player all around as well. And I advocate getting experience across all of them. You can concentrate on one format or the other if it's more to your liking. Like you said, you and I like to tinker and tweak with our rosters and maintain that roster all season long, all year long. In the case of Dynasty,
actively involved in it, and so I want to be actively involved.
And for people who love drafting and love putting a team together, DFS is perfect because you get to do it every week, literally. I mean, there's something for everybody out there. But best ball is one way I think that it's a way to get in your practice, but at the same time be getting skin in the game and actually having something to play for, having something to prepare for and to play for at the same time. So I like the best ball format. It's not my least favorite. It's not my top favorite, honestly. I haven't done a ton of it. I've done more best ball since I started doing this than
with the belly up and the children's. The only time I've been involved with best ball.
Right. And Kevin brings up a great point, everybody out there. We'll reiterate it again, and it will not be the last time we say it today, and it won't be the last time we say it this season. Get yourself over to bellyupfantasysports.com.
Absolutely.
Sign up for the Belly Up Bowl. As he said, it benefits Alex's Lemonade Stand, which helps kids with childhood cancer.
Hundreds of people involved in this.
Yep.
So if you're looking to be involved in a massive tournament, this is the one to get involved in. Is what is there? It's a whole bunch of individual leagues, and each league has 10 or 12 or whatever the number is.
It's for the kids, but you can win something too. It's charity,
half that
but
money goes to the kids, and the other half they just
gets distributed between the top two finishers in the tournament.
Playoffs and everything else. And so the first year I did it, I went actually to the playoffs, and didn't win. But the past year, not so much.
I had, and again, we're talking strategy today. So one thing that I will say is my strategy last year, I took a lot of big swings on rookies and guys that were coming off injuries, and I took a lot of big high risk, high reward type picks last year, and we'll talk about how that worked out for me. I mean, it didn't work out real great for me.
To hear that, because that's something that ties right into my strategy.
And it ties into, I think, some common misconceptions too about best ball. So we're going to get into that here coming up right after this break. We're going to take our first ad break real quick. We'll listen to our friend Dan Mader tell us about all the good things going on over at Manscaped for all of your different body hair needs. And then when we come back on the other side, let's dive into and actually start talking about some actual best ball strategies and ways that you can construct your roster to, like I said, hopefully win you guarantee you the medium bucks and maybe win you the big bucks here in your upcoming tournaments.
Spring has sprung, and our friends at Manscaped have the best tools for some spring cleaning. They've already helped you tidy up all the nooks and crannies of your body's basement, but this year, Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using code BELLYUP20 to get 20% off and free shipping at Manscaped.com. It's time to tame your mane with the Beard Hedger Pro Kit. The sun is peeking back out, which means you'll have to show your face in the daylight again. So use the kit to make sure your scruff looks award-winning, whether you got glorious beard flow or some smooth, sleek cheeks. The kit starts off with the Beard Hedger, a waterproof cordless trimmer with a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard. So no more messy drawers full of add-ons. It also comes with the titanium-coated T-blades that are tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to a single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. The Beard Hedger is a high-tech piece of art in a travel-sized package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging, and a strong motor. So what are you waiting for? Save 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUP20 at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUP20 at Manscaped.com. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game.
All right, there we go. And reminder too that it's not just trimmers that over there. It's not just a one stop and done over there at Manscaped.com. You can get, they have beard washes, they have moisturizers and oils and everything else that you need to take care of yourself there. So get over there.
And that menu is expanding all the time. So
always,
get over there and check it out.
Yep. No, yeah. You think of Manscaped, don't just think down below, think up top as well. But like I said, don't just think trimmers. They've got everything you need to take care of yourself over there at Manscaped.com. So use that promo code BELLYUP20, get yourself 20% off, and take care of yourself. The significant others in your life will appreciate it as well. So, all right. So we're talking best ball today. We're talking best ball this morning. We're going to talk about some specific strategies to get into. I guess, one to start off with, I want to ask you, Kevin, since you're not a big best ball fan, is there one specific, like when you go into a best ball draft, is there one thing that you're specifically always concentrating on? Like, this is what I have to come away doing this specific thing. Do you have a rule that you set for yourself or a strategy you set for yourself coming right out the gate? What is there something that you do in your best ball drafts?
As opposed to what you were just saying about taking big swings, you could do that for, at the top of the draft, because you're going to draft the same players that you're going to draft pretty much anywhere else. But after that, then I'm looking for players that I think are going to be healthy, that have had no injury issues throughout their careers, whatever. Because once you get into week 10, 11, and all that, and all these other players are going down to injury, then if you've got guys that are healthy towards the end, then your best ball, per week are going to have players that are active in it. Your chances of winning that, those weeks are much better to me if you've got players that are available. They talk about the best ability is availability. And I think that is especially true here in best ball, because it doesn't matter if you take a player who's having a top 10 season, let's say like Dalvin Cook is a guy that I would probably not be looking to get involved with, because every year at the end, he winds up hurt. And so if he's hurt and not playing, doesn't help you one iota.
And that was one place where I last year, like in the Belly Up Bowl, so in our own tournament, that was what I did is I took some big swings. I took guys that I knew were DeAndre Hopkins. I took DeAndre Hopkins, knowing that he was going to be unavailable for the first 6 games of the season. But I figured, okay, well, when he comes back, I'll have DeAndre Hopkins and I'll have a top receiver, which is great. And
I can see that.
I did the same. I also took Jameson Williams, knowing again that he was not going to play early in the season, coming back from the injury, and that I would have him later in the season. That was a double risk being that was a double risk being a rookie, unproven, unknown. But then also, like I said, he wasn't available for the first half of the season. Well, part of the problem with taking too many big swings like that, or taking too many risks like that, is that you thin out the pool that's available to you. Like you just said with the injury situation, if those guys aren't available, they can't score for you. Well, just like playing the regular lottery, if you get one lottery ticket, you're in. Great. But if you get several tickets and several number combinations, you have more chances to win. If you don't have players available to you, if you've only got 4 out of the 7 receivers on your roster available to you because of injury or suspension or whatever, exactly, and bye weeks, if you've only got 4 out of 7,
you need to take bye weeks very much into account.
Yes,
because unlike other leagues, you cannot replace those players that are on their bye week.
And if everybody else has more guys available, they have more chances to pull
They're going to
from.
beat you.
Absolutely. And so taking too much, it's one of the mistakes that people make in the best ball format is that they take a lot of big swings, figuring they can afford to take the big swings. Well, you can to some extent, but you need to set yourself up for success. You need to make sure that you are covered all across the board. If you have too many risk guys, too many injured guys, too many guys on suspension, too many bye weeks, whatever, you are now pulling from a smaller pool of players than the other people in your league, and possibly the person that if it's a head-to-head format, the person you're playing against, but you are pulling from a smaller pool. It's like a school of 300 kids versus a big city school that has, several thousand kids in it. There's a bigger pool of players that they can pull from. So chances are they're going to be able to get more good players to play against you. Same way on your best ball roster.
So if they need a 6'10" center in basketball, let's say, they can find a 6'10" center where your top player might be 6'4" or something.
There's probably more 6'10" guys available in that bigger school district. And so, the one 6'10" kid you have who's never played basketball and just, is completely unexperienced, as opposed to the 4 6'10" guys that the other school can choose from. And 2 of them have been playing basketball since they were knee high to a grasshopper. But it's the same kind of philosophy. And you bring up a good point there about bye weeks and about injuries and everything else.
You got to be aware of bye weeks.
Exactly.
Especially at the quarterback position.
And this is why I talk about, like I said, when you go into the game, when you go into the draft, you need to understand the roster requirements and the scoring requirements and that, and cover yourself against bye weeks and against injury. If it's a 1 quarterback league, you want to make sure you're taking enough quarterbacks to cover yourself in the bye week, but you don't have to take as many.
No, you do not.
If it's a super
quarterback
league,
3 is about all you need.
Right. But if it's a super flex league.
Oh, if it's super flex, you have 3 quarterbacks and they're all in the same bye week. Guess what? You just took it out.
Exactly. Right. You cannot decide, and you don't want to consciously decide. Sometimes in redraft, we're like, well, okay, fine. I drafted 3 running backs that all have the same bye week. My top 4 running backs, 3 of them have the same bye week. It's okay. I'll just whatever. Buy Mageddon in week 10. I'll punt it, and it'll be a loss that I know I chalk up, but the rest of the year I'll have all my guys. If you try to do that in a best ball tournament, if you decide consciously you're going to punt 1 week, you've basically lost yourself the tournament going into the tournament. You cannot decide that you're just going to forget about any given week.
Right,
you need to cover yourself.
You can't make up for a loss.
No, there's no way to. And there's no way to tweak your roster going forward. So if it's
to get it better, to make up for that loss, you can't do it.
So we know in Superflex format, it's advantageous, or especially if it's a 2 quarterback period format. But if it's a super flex format, any format you can play 2 quarterbacks in, you need to have 2 quarterbacks in your lineup because it is just too big a detriment not to. So if you don't draft enough quarterbacks on your initial roster in best ball to cover the bye weeks of the quarterbacks that you have, and to then to some extent insulate yourself again against injuries, if you don't have enough guys on the roster, you're not going to be able to be competitive.
Right.
And so you need to take those kinds of things into account while you're drafting. Okay, it's 2 quarterback league. I've got a guy with a bye in week 6. I got a bye in week 10.
Up a quarterback to the first round, whereas in other you're not doing that.
No, yeah, generally, redraft format, you don't want to necessarily. It's a super flex. Okay, yeah, you have to, but
yeah, it's super flex. If it's a super
you want to
flex,
take quarterbacks
just no
early.
matter what kind of draft we're doing, but yeah.
But when you have to insulate yourself like that in a best ball draft, you need to make sure that you have those kinds of things covered. So, you want to do things like paying attention to your bye weeks of the players that you've taken and the players who are still left available. You want to take into account their injury history, where it may not be such a big deal in your redraft leagues.
Because towards the end of the draft, you're taking probably rookies.
Right.
Or, players that haven't been on, rosters very long. And if they've got an injury history already going in, maybe that's not the best thing to do.
So we need to make sure that, like we said, we know roster requirements, we know scoring requirements, and we're paying attention to bye weeks and who's going to be off or who's going to be suspended early in the year. Yeah, great. You want to take a guy, if word comes out tomorrow that Alvin Kamara is going to be suspended for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, you want to take him, fine, take him. But then you have to make sure that you construct the rest of your roster to cover for that until he's available, and not just cover for it, but cover for it well. You may end up taking more running backs than you initially would have, just to make sure that you are covering yourself for that Alvin Kamara pick. And that's something, like I said, I didn't necessarily do last year. I swung from the heels, swung from the fences. I took a great big old hack at it, big Mo Vaughn type hack. And it cost me. But
it's the same thing that happened to me when I was doing my first super flex draft, and didn't realize, hey, you need 2 quarterbacks.
You need to have that,
in Dynasty. And so I'm still feeling the effects of that because I don't have enough quarterbacks on my roster, because I've had to adjust from that. And so that's the kind of thing that you need to be aware of going in.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there are no ways to correct any mistakes after that.
Keep in mind, I mean, you can't win your league in a redraft format on draft day. You can lose it. And but in best ball, it's you either won or lost on draft day, because that's the only way that you can construct your roster. So you have to make sure that you go into that thing prepared and that you know what you're talking about. So specific strategies. Now, one of the popular strategies, one of the most popular strategies, and it's been proven out, and there's been research done, and guys that know a lot more about maths than your resident English major here.
English is my that's my best.
It's what I majored in.
Math, not so much.
No, I always say I have degrees in English and in theater, so I'm really good at storytelling and make believe. I can play dress up. I can tell you stories.
What we're doing today. So.
But yeah, math is something I have to work at, which means I have to really buckle down here.
It's 2 cars going 100 miles an hour and towards each other, and so it's not going to work out well.
Yeah, I can come up with about 18 different ways to tell you how fast they were going, but I can't. I'm not going to tell you who's going to make it to Albuquerque first
or whatever.
Yeah. So, but one of the best strategies and one of the most popular strategies you can use is stacking in best ball, where you make sure that you pair your quarterback with one or more receivers on his own actual real life team. And that's, like I said, it's been borne out. It's been proven statistically, mathematically, by people who know a lot more maths than I do, it is a winning strategy. But I think there's a lot of misconception out there about what stacking actually means, or about the best way and the most effective way to stack. Are there any stacks, or A, have you used stacking much in the past? B, are there any stacks that you're looking at this season that you're really excited about?
Well, to answer your question, A, no, I have not done that. As well, I missed that on the math boat, just the same as you. And so I was reading that they're saying that stacking is crucial in best ball. I wouldn't go quite that far, but I could certainly see how it would be an advantage, provided that you don't go into it with an expectation of some stacks. Like, for example, you're not going to be able to stack Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to be able to do that because you were not going to be in a position to draft both of those people. You're not going to be able to do it. So don't even consider that. I would think that a stack that would be advantageous would be my Seattle Seahawks and Geno Smith, because you can get him a little bit later. And then someone like Tyler Lockett, because DK Metcalf always overshadows him. Maybe you can wind up with all three of them. I'm not too sure about.
That would be a dream. That would be a
yes,
dream.
it would be. And so there's certainly you could get one or pair of them, maybe two. And so the Seahawks are going to throw the football, and so the advantage is because anything that Geno Smith does takes whoever you paired him up with right along with him, whether it's DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett or whomever it might be. So let's say he throws, especially DK Metcalf, because Geno Smith can throw the long ball, and DK, that was one of the things we're wondering, because DK Metcalf and Russell Wilson feasted in that, and didn't make any whole lot of difference right there. So let's say he throws a 40-yard touchdown pass to DK Metcalf. So you're going to get extra points because of the pass, the length, and at the touchdown.
Yep.
So if you took a wide receiver off another team, you're not going to get that boost right there. So that is the feat, the thinking behind that is you have to make sure you're taking a stack from a prolific enough offense.
Yes.
Right. You're not going to want to stack too many players, let's say, from Atlanta. Let's just say.
Right.
Okay?
Stack if you when you're stacking. First off, yeah, I mean it sounds like it should go without saying, but yeah, you want to target higher upside offenses, because offenses that get in the end zone more, that rack up more yards, are necessarily gaining more points. But when you're stacking, especially, you're going to be, like you said, reaping the benefits at 2 or 3 different positions in that stack. Okay. So you want to target high upside offenses. You want to be going after the offenses, the Cincinnati's. Okay. Yeah. The ones that are going to be,
because Joe Burrow is potentially somebody you could get a little bit later than some of these other quarterbacks. So you could get Joe Burrow and Chase, something like that.
So yeah, grabbing guys off Buffalo, grabbing guys off Cincinnati,
Buffalo,
grabbing guys off
the
Philadelphia
Chargers,
and
that
Kansas
injury
City
problem right there. I don't know if I would be doing that a whole lot, because Allen, injury risk, Williams, injury risk. Maybe you could put the quarterback and the running back together. Maybe that's something that you could work out, because they are a pass catching duo. So maybe that's something you could work out.
And that kind of leads into my next point here. Yeah, like with the stack. One of the things I like, you brought up Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett is one of my he's been one of my hammer points for several years. He's a
1,000-yard receiver.
He's been a little bit more consistent.
For him to step off the mountainside, and it has not happened.
He's been a little more consistent the last season or two here, but for so many years, he was a guy, and going back even farther than Tyler Lockett, a guy like Deshaun Jackson. Those were always guys who at the end of the year, yeah, they were going to be top 20 type receivers, and they were going to have the counting stats. But Deshaun Jackson was always really good for going 3 or 4 weeks in a row with having like 3 catches for 32 yards. Great. So I got 6 points out of Deshaun Jackson. He's my wide receiver 2. 6 points out of my wide receiver 2 isn't going to work. But you knew that there were going to be 2 or 3 times a year where he was going to go off and have like 5 catches for 112 yards and 2 scores. And he was going to win you that week. And Tyler Lockett was the same kind of guy earlier in his career, where you knew there were going to be a couple of 30-point weeks coming from Tyler Lockett, but your guess was as good as mine as to when the hell they were going to be. So you had to draft Tyler Lockett and put him in your lineup using draft capital that skipped guys who were more consistent, knowing that, okay, I'm probably getting 5 points out of him this week, and I might get 8 points out of him next week. And the following week, I might get one catch for 12 yards. But then at some point, he's going to have a 33-point game and win you that week. In best ball, you don't have to worry about trying to find those weeks, because those weeks will automatically be played for you.
That's right. They'll plug it in for you.
And so a guy like Tyler Lockett has always been awesome in best ball, because you don't have to worry that, okay, the week that he gets 6 points, you don't have to worry that you missed out on it, right?
Right.
And Deshaun Jackson was always that guy that, like, the minute you decided to take Deshaun Jackson out of your lineup was the week that he caught 5 balls for 125 yards and 2-3 scores of 60 yards each, right?
Yeah, kind of like Gabriel Davis.
Yeah. Gabriel Davis is not. Yeah, exactly.
He's today's example of that.
He was a perfect example of that last year. I was high on him coming into the year. I overdrafted him relative to what he ended up being, because I was so excited about his potential in that offense. Well, week 1, it looked great. He caught the first touchdown of the season, for crying out loud. And he had a great game week 1. And then it took a while. And then, okay, now he popped off again. And then it took a while. And he popped off again. But you never knew when. You couldn't take him out of your line. You felt bad taking him out of your lineup, because the minute you did was when he went off. But when you're talking about targeting these offenses and targeting these players and stacking players, it's one way to kind of cover yourself in that stack is to pair a suboptimal quarterback with a top receiving threat. You take the receiving threat early, you can get his somewhat lesser quarterback a little bit later on, as opposed to, like you said, trying to take Patrick Mahomes and then hoping
I've got an example
pair him
for
with
you right off
Kelsey.
the bat. Somebody like Jefferson
and
Cousins.
I had that. I've got it on my notes right here.
Right there. Okay, so
18 inches from my
sorry,
face.
I stole your thunder on that, but yeah,
no, it's
Justin
perfect.
Jefferson is somebody that you would obviously have to take early, maybe even first.
Right.
But then Kirk Cousins, you wait around almost forever to get him. And
nobody wants to jump on Kirk Cousins the way they want to jump on Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Right.
It's going to be a lot harder to set up a stack of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs than it is to set up a Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins stack. And Kirk Cousins is a guy that we know isn't going to throw 40-some touchdowns this season.
Right.
But we know that he's going to find Justin Jefferson.
He's going to throw the football. You know that's a fact.
And those weeks when he finds Jefferson for 2 scores and finds Hawkinson for another, and he is one of the top 6 or 8 scoring quarterbacks in the league, you can have him. If you're taking, say it's a super flex format, if you're taking Cousins as your second quarterback, you don't have to rely on him to get you the Patrick Mahomes type numbers.
No.
But you know that you're going to have some weeks where he does end up being your quarterback for that week, and you've paired him with his top receiver. So you're double dipping every time Jefferson has a big game. You've got that potential to double dip on those points. So yeah, that's one way I like to really look at stacking is there a way I can stack one of my top receivers with my number 2 or 3 quarterback, where I don't have to worry about that quarterback trying to be one of my starters? Tua and Tyreek Hill.
Right.
And Jalen Waddle. Tua's got a ton of guys to throw to. He's got potential to have some gigantic weeks. Week in and week out, Tyreek Hill is going to get his. Tua, if Tua gets hurt, obviously he's not throwing. Whoever's throwing to Tyreek's going to get his numbers. But the weeks that Tua is healthy and the weeks that he does find Tyreek Hill, if you've got Tua as your number 2 quarterback, now you're talking, you can rack up some big wins and some big points because you're going to get that benefit of Tua and the Tua Tyreek, Tua Jalen Waddle stack, but you don't have to worry so much about Tua being your lead guy. So yeah, that's the way I like to look at stacking.
Right. Yeah, and only caution that because if you stack players, and obviously they're in the same bye week, and so you need to make sure that if you do that, then you've got other players that you
have to be
slide
covered
right into that certain bye week. If you get that covered, then you're really set.
And we mentioned this earlier, but we're going to hammer it right now. One of the things you need to do, or to be a truly successful best ball player, monitor ADP figures, monitor that average draft position figure. Know
more than any other fantasy format.
If you're trying to
ADP
set up a stack,
matters in best ball.
If you're trying to set up a stack, what you don't want to do is you don't want to way overreach for somebody. You don't want to take someone 4 rounds early simply for the sake of setting up the all-important stack.
Right.
But you can make an educated guess as to say, okay, well, I'm taking quarterbacks right now, and I'm choosing between Dak Prescott and another quarterback, and Dak's ADP is right now. Well, that's great, but at my draft position, if I take Dak right now, CeeDee Lamb may not come back around to me at where his ADP is. Okay, are you going to then skip on Dak, or are you going to just take him and realize, okay, I'm not stacking him with CeeDee, but maybe I can pick up Gallup or Cooks later on? You have to make those kinds of decisions. But the other thing that you can do then too, by watching that ADP and using the stacking mindset, basically you can use it to make tie breaks in your decision making. Okay, I already have this quarterback, X quarterback. Now I'm trying to choose between a couple of receivers that are all real similar ADP wise. So I know I know that if I take one now, the other 2 aren't coming back around to me. But this receiver compare with my quarterback, that breaks your tie. That's who you decide on. That's one way you can help yourself make decisions in best ball format.
Absolutely. And just in case you wonder what I'm doing, I was alerted that a certain player in my lineup is not starting today. And as I said, you and I are going head to head. So
we are.
And,
yeah,
you pretty much picked up every available starting pitcher.
It's a Hail Mary run.
Found from sea to shining sea.
It's a Hail Mary run for everybody who's kind of been half following along with us here this season. We're both in the Sports Stove. Basically, it's the Belly Up fantasy baseball league, and Kevin and I are going head to head. Kevin is in second place right now. He's only lost 1 game all year. I am tied with about 376 other analysts at 3 and 5. Right, I have to win, and I need to separate myself. I was doing great coming into this weekend. I had been, I was scoring left and right.
Starters when I didn't have any.
Yep. And then you stacked up a bunch of starters here in the last 2 days when I didn't.
Big time bammed yesterday. So,
yep. So I'm coming into today with a little bit of a deficit here, and I'm throwing a Hail Mary by trying to hammer a bunch of starting pitchers into my lineup. I dropped a couple of relievers, tried to hammer some guys in there. But
I did the opposite. I picked up relievers.
Yeah. Well, I like to have enough relievers in my lineup that I can have opportunity for daily points, even if it's 4 or 5, whatever, because it's steady point drip. But yep, I fell behind here the last couple of days because you had some starters that I didn't when I did not, and so I'm throwing a Hail Mary pass here, trying to keep my head above water. I need the win more than you do, Kevin. So if you anybody who doesn't want to play for you today is fine by me. So stacking. Back to the. So getting back to the stacking, idea here. Like we said, use it to tie break in your decisions. don't go overboard and
Right.
try and
Maybe
don't
one
reach
round
for guys
earlier
Yeah.
than you might have.
Yeah, one round is
That's
one
fine.
thing.
Right.
Four,
One round,
four
but,
or five, no.
no,
Don't
no.
sell out for the stack.
Right.
Use the ADP figures because it will help you make those decisions and may help you understand whether or not you can afford to wait around for a guy. If you're trying to set up a specific stack, but the ADP just says it's not going to happen, maybe you need to rethink your strategy, or maybe you need to take not the quarterback that you were looking at taking right now. Maybe you wait around for your quarterback, take a different player. Use those ADP figures. They can help you determine how soon is too soon to take a guy. The last thing I want to kind of really hammer home on before we move on and talk about some free agent guys here, you had brought it up a little bit earlier, is the going all in on high risk guys as opposed to mixing in some safe floor guys. You need to make sure that week in, week out, you're scoring at least a base of points. And that should go without saying. You would think it goes without saying, but it doesn't go without saying, because in best ball format, a lot of people get wrapped up in the idea of, oh, I'll take all the big shots because, because somebody's going to go off every week. Somebody's going to go off every week, but if you don't have the right guys, it may not matter. If you don't have the guys that go off every week, then you're left with a bunch of guys, like I just said, you're left with a bunch of Deshaun Jacksons catching 3 passes for 32 yards every week and no scores.
Right. And
you need to mix in some, and you're not going to be able to build your lineup with all Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill.
There are other people in your league. Okay.
Right.
So they're taking those
other
guys
people are going to be drafting.
Yeah.
Other people are thinking the same things that you are. So rather than taking all of these big swings or looking at guys who are all upside, and you're just drafting for ceiling across the board, it's best ball should not be drafting ceiling across the board. It should be taking calculated shots on guys with ceiling while ensuring yourself a base to work with every week. So a guy like Amari Cooper, who is a steady, solid wide receiver and gets points every single week, and may not go off for 35 ever in the season.
Right. But could be even better because Deshaun Watson will be better.
Exactly. But you've got at least a baseline to work with there. If you draft all dudes like Christian Watson, who we know can catch 3 70-yard touchdowns in one game, but who we don't know is going to have that weekly floor this year, we don't know that about him. If you draft all guys like that, you have really set yourself up volatility wise to tank yourself before you even get off before you even get away from the dock there. So making sure that when you're drafting best ball, you're not just shooting for the moon on every single pick, taking some of those safe floor guys, I think is something that people need to pay attention to.
I agree 100% on it.
All right. Well, let's listen to our second ad spot here. We come back on the other side. There are still some free agents out there, everybody.
There are some.
The major wave has gone. The major wave has gone. The major 2 waves have gone. The draft is gone. Teams know where they sit right now and what they still need and what they don't need. And the guys who are out there are still out there for a reason, but there are still free agents available who could factor in this season. And it's not just always the obvious name, DeAndre Hopkins. There are guys out there who can still, who will still impact this fantasy season. We're going to talk about those right on the other side of this break.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of your lineup questions, yep. I've been frustrated lately because Sean Murphy has been one of the best hitting players in the league this season. And it seems like the last 2-3 weeks or so, they want to give a lot more run to Travis Darno than I want them to down there in Atlanta. I don't know if they're saving Sean Murphy or what, but if Travis Darno wants to stop playing every 3 days or so, I'd be awesome with that. And that's a lot more of a consideration. I'm learning. This is my first year ever playing fantasy baseball. We talked about it during the draft, spectacular there on the stove, but it's a lot more frustrating trying to monitor those kinds of things in baseball, because for 16, 17, 8, games of the season that the top receiver is going to play every week for every football team. There's no guarantee day in, day out that the top second baseman for team X plays every
when the
day.
game starts like now at 10 freaking
It's an
30
early
in the
start,
morning,
East Coast start.
And then you get the alert, hey, your catchers and your starting lineup, but not starting today. There's not a thing you can do about it.
Right. And so I'm trying something. I'm basically, I have my guys, I have my position player guys. And if they miss a game or two a week, they miss a game or two a week, but I'm trying to concentrate much more on the pitching side of things than I did in the draft going into it. So we'll see if I can pull myself out of this. I'm still scoring really well. It's just, I keep running into everybody's buzzsaw week, and then now I'm playing you. So, all right. So free agent wise,
free agents,
there are still guys out there who can
few.
factor in, and, depending on the position you're talking about, you've got guys who will or will not have, more or less, impact here. But the quarterback position right now, everybody's pretty much set at their starting quarterback by now. And if you're not, your franchise has much more problem than.
There's one team that's glaring.
Okay. Take it away then.
Okay. So the team that I'm talking about, that's got red lights flashing all over the place, is Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
All right. Because they've got Colt McCoy, who I believe is 45 years old by now,
73, something. Yeah.
And
AARP
Kyler
card.
Murray. Yeah, born when Nixon was still president. I don't know, but so they got him, and if he's a backup, you could deal with that, right? But you don't know when Kyler Murray is going to play at any point. And so that's your quarterback room if you're the Arizona Cardinals. So
yeah, you've got a maybe, and you've got Colt McCoy.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not the maybe, that you're looking for right there. So maybe Wentz might work down there. He's a starter. He's got starter experience. I was thinking originally Bridgewater, but that depends on what Bridgewater's looking for. If he's looking to be a starter, which, I'm not big on that at all. But if he's looking to be a backup to help a young quarterback, your Green Bay Packers is an ideal fit for that.
Somebody there are 3 guys left right now on the quarterback market who have any kind of name recognition. There's
only 2,
like you brought up. There's Bridgewater, there's Carson Wentz, and then there's Matt Ryan, who has told everybody that he is not retired, but he's not signing just yet, and he's going to kind of wait and see. He's got name recognition, but I think we saw what he has or doesn't have last season. Yeah, no, we saw last season, I think, what Ryan does or doesn't have left in the tank. Right. So I agree with you that the 2 names to really watch for are Bridgewater and Wentz. And I think that you named a couple of places where those 2 guys, either of those guys, could actually have some value. Right. Either one of them, it would not be the biggest shock. If either one of them signed in Arizona, it would not surprise anybody if that was your week 1 starting quarterback, because we know Kyler Murray will not be ready for the beginning of the season. We don't necessarily know how much Kyler Murray is going to play period this season, with them being in transition roster wise and a new regime there, a new coaching staff. And with Kyler rehabbing from this injury, how much are they going to want to push him? Because he is still a young, talented quarterback. You don't want to throw him to the wolves before he's ready, coming off of an injury, and ruin him for the future. especially at that position. So it would not shock anybody to see Bridgewater or Wentz come in and be
Right.
quarterback.
And once either or of those guys signed down in Arizona, if you're a dynasty, I would immediately look
Snap them
to
up.
snap that
Yep.
up like nobody's business. And hopefully it'll work out better than it did down in Atlanta
Yeah.
last year when I snapped up Marcus Mariota, and he had some decent games down there.
Had they left Marcus Mariota alone, he was a fine fantasy play. I said that going into the season, and I maintained it
And I
throughout the
picked him
season.
up in my dynasty league, and it worked out until it didn't.
Until it didn't. until they decided to finally turn the reins over to Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder, a little bit of a, of a backup here, but he's a guy I like coming into this year. I'm not drafting him high, but he's a guy I would take a shot on, especially in best ball formats. I would jump on a Desmond Ridder type later in a best ball draft with his rushing upside and with the receiving threats that he does have for him. He's a guy I'd jump on, but I don't want anybody down in Arizona for redraft purposes. But like you said, with Bridgewater and Wentz still out there and with that crazy situation down there, I think Arizona is a perfect fit for a free agent quarterback right now. If I'm a free agent quarterback who has any kind of playing experience, if I've started one game in the past, I'm having my agent hammer that home to Arizona right now. Yeah. Hey,
right.
Look at my guy.
There's no downside to that. Well, the only downside is you show up actually to Arizona and
the downside is you have to actually play for Arizona.
You actually have to play for them, but if you sign an NFL contract, you can afford plenty of time.
You can live with that. You can fall on that grenade. Tight end position is not quite. Is not overly deep right now in the free.
No,
basically. If you need a tight end, you've got your tight end by now.
Right. And if you're a free agent tight end, you're pretty much SOL. Unless you all the tight ends that just got drafted.
If you can block and you're a tight end, then you can find yourself a job somewhere as a third tackle on the field. That's a guy like that's a role that Mercedes Lewis has been playing for about 17 years now. Guy like Mercedes Lewis, speaking of my Packers, he has been well known as a blocking back, but he's also smart enough to get open in the red zone and to use in moving the sticks everywhere you want to use a tight end. Every game situation you want to use a tight end. Mercedes Lewis is a usable piece in real football. Fantasy wise, you're not getting a whole hell of a lot out of Mercedes. If you're scraping that part of the barrel, you're probably out of it this year anyway.
Yeah.
Mercedes Lewis is a name that's still out there. He's been talked about in New York. New York doesn't seem to want him. But
the player I'd look at to see where he goes is Cameron Brate.
That's the other name. That's the only other name on the tight end roster.
Yeah. If all he needs to do is just go down the freeway and sign with Miami. There
you go.
Then we're all set.
Miami, who let Mike Gesicki, who turned Mike Gesicki loose in division, to the Patriots. But that's a team that Durham, Smythe, and who else? I mean, nobody knows.
Nobody knows because they haven't. They don't even have their driver's license yet.
Cameron Brate, a guy has not been a superstar, but has been a good, solid starting tight end in this league, can put together some weeks. And in the right situation would be just as good a dart throw as anybody else, not named Kelsey, because it's a tight end position. But the cupboard's pretty bare there. But there are still some running backs and receivers who can move the needle.
There are a few.
So let's move to that running back position right away. Who out there do you think is best capable of actually stepping in, not just helping an NFL team from their real life roster standpoint, but helping or changing fantasy rosters right now? Are there a name or two out there that you're looking at?
Well, one that tops the list, and that's Zeke.
Ezekiel.
And so the answer that I was originally think I was going to go with was the Cincinnati Bengals. And that's a fit for him, I think, still. But I think that if he can get the similar amount of money wherever, then he might as well just come right back to the Dallas Cowboys.
And that
That would,
possibility is still out there.
right. And, Stephen Jones, pretty much when Zeke was going out of, on his way out of town, pretty much, put up a sign, will you marry me? So
The
there's
Jones
no
family does love
animosity
them some
there.
Zeke.
Usually what happens when players leave a team and they just as soon, drive over, management with their Jaguars or whatever else. But
Escalade, yeah.
yeah, Escalade or whatever it might be. But there's none of that. So if he was to come to Dallas, back to Dallas, then you know what you're going to get. You're going to get pretty much the exact same thing as you got a year ago. Pollard, you'll get that. Zeke, you'll get that. He'll have the pretty much the same floor and ceiling as he had a year ago. And so if that's what happens, I think that would be an excellent fantasy fit for him.
Dallas is an interesting fit, period, for a free
It
agent
is.
running back right now
Yeah,
because,
whoever
like
they
you
might
said,
decide to go with, if it's not Zeke, Fournette,
they
fit
drafted
in there.
Deuce Vaughn,
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn,
but he was
and that's
a
a great
5th-round
name,
pick.
Deuce,
Right.
great name, right? But you and Pollard, they assume he's going to be healthy, but you don't know that.
Pollard looks like he'll be ready for the season, but how strong will he be, or how willing will they be to turn him loose fully early
Right.
on in the season?
And they need him or somebody like him to be fully engaged right from the start.
So bringing back Zeke, if you can bring back Zeke at the right price, I think it fits perfect there because he already knows. I mean, they've new offensive coordinator this season. Kellen Moore has moved on.
Yeah, he might even have the playbook still in the back.
But yeah, right. He knows what the team wants to do. He knows the offensive line in front of him. He knows more or less what they want to do, regardless of the fact that they have the new offensive coordinator there in Dallas. Brian Schottenheimer, changing from Kellen Moore to Brian Schottenheimer, you've still got Mike McCarthy overseeing the entire thing. The philosophy isn't going to necessarily change wholesale overnight.
No,
but
and it doesn't.
What you get with Zeke. You know how he fits with Pollard. You know how their skill sets intertwine. And Zeke is a guy, and we talked about this a little bit in the run up to the show this morning, in pregame. Zeke is a guy that is not an every down bell cow back anymore, but he's also a back that you do not have to take off the field in any given circumstance. You can still use Ezekiel Elliott as a passing down back. You can still use him as a first and second down or goal line back. You can use him in any situation. He does not have to come off the field. So you're not telegraphing what's happening on the play, like say with Darren Sproles back in the day.
He comes out and the other guy comes in. Well,
right. This is not J.D. McKissick versus Antonio Gibson or whatever from Washington 2-3 years ago.
Exactly.
With Zeke in the game, you can still run your entire playbook. With Tony Pollard in the game, you can still run your entire playbook. So that I think him going back to Dallas is a great fit. He's been discussed as going to possibly a place. You brought up Cincinnati would be perfect. They lost Samaje Perine, who had been working as their passing down back.
And they don't know, what's going on with legal scenarios up
with
there.
Joe Mixon. They drafted Chase Brown, but he's about 12 years old and he's never played a down in the league.
Right. And so maybe, Zeke, until that's, finalized, maybe he wouldn't want to get involved in all that because you're stepping into a situation that you don't know what exactly you're signing up for.
Well, another interesting situation that he's been connected to, though, speaking of Zeke specifically, is the Chargers.
The Chargers.
We know Austin Eckler.
He's right here.
Austin Eckler is great.
He is
doing whatever you want him to do, but they don't necessarily want to have to use him between the tackles.
No.
But you're talking about a team that just took Kellen Moore, who has been, guess who? Ezekiel Elliott's offensive coordinator for the past several years. So you bring Zeke in, he could take some of that pounding on the early downs between the tackles. And now Austin Eckler doesn't have to necessarily be out there as much, take as much of a pounding, but can still do everything that you want Austin Eckler to do. The problem with that from a fantasy standpoint is now you've kind of you've taken a big portion of Austin Eckler's value away, and you've given it to a guy in Austin in Ezekiel Elliott. That how much value does that give him? And where do you draft or where do you take either one of those guys? But I think Los Angeles Chargers is another fit for.
Yeah, unless you want to play Austin Eckler out wide.
And they very well could do that.
Use
him in that kind of almost more like the Deebo Samuel type role, where running back, receiver, what was he playing any given down? And Austin Eckler's a guy whose skill set definitely lends itself to that kind of usage.
Absolutely.
And now you're talking,
money, so he's happy now. So
getting all your weapons on the field. That's
turn them loose.
Other names out there right now, running back wise, that are still out there for free agent wise. We still don't have Kareem Hunt signed. Again, another guy who's been talking about possibly going right back to the guy that he's. Yep, that's a guy that could go to Cincinnati.
Not only because it's it's an opportunity, but if he was to go there and play, he could stick it up Cleveland's behind twice a year.
Yep, he's got an opportunity to give the big middle finger to his old team the whole time. So Hunt is out there. I think bringing up Cincinnati is a great fit for him if they could swing it, if they feel like it, because we just said they lost their passing down back, and Kareem Hunt has been increasingly in his career a pass down back. He can run the ball. He's a good running back. We saw it his rookie year when he was the possibly the top overall back in the league. With Kansas City, but he has been increasingly in his career used as a passing down type back. They lost Samaje Perine. They have a need there. I think that seems like a really good fit for him. You brought up Leonard Fournette as a guy who is still out there. Fournette is a guy that needs one of those places where he can be the early down back and doesn't have to do it all. He was wildly inefficient last season.
He actually went to the later down back, because last year, remember, he was the pass catcher.
They did use him as that. They did use him that way.
And running, running wasn't quite so robust.
And was it a function of their offensive line? Was it a function of not having Tom?
Might have been
not having top level Tom Brady anymore. Yeah. But they definitely. I mean, he was so wildly inefficient last season as a running back. He and Joe Mixon, another guy that we've been talking about, Joe Mixon. Their inefficiency and their inability to make anything of the carries that they had. I think Leonard Fournette needs a very specific, spot. He needs to land in a very specific spot. And, Tampa Bay didn't have a terrible offensive line last season, so it wasn't like they weren't necessarily blocking for Leonard Fournette. He just didn't gain anything every time he ran the ball.
Right.
But he is definitely one of the bigger names out there.
He was effective as a pass catcher. Very.
Yes.
Effective.
There are several guys out there right now, running back wise, pass catcher wise. J.D. McKissick is another one who's still out there, and he's been a pass catching back in his career. There are still
wouldn't be in the league if he wasn't a pass catching back.
So there are guys out there that if you're looking for a third down type back, or you're looking for a guy to just catch passes and take some pressure off of your guy and that you have in house that you maybe only want mostly as a first and second down back. We've talked in the past, and we'll talk about it in the future. The way of the world right now is that it's multiple running backs in your backfield. The bell cow back is a increasing rarity in the sport right now. Bringing in a guy like a McKissick, like a Hunt, like a Fournette, heck, like a Melvin Gordon, bringing anybody in to be a secondary guy in your backfield, but to be almost more like a 1B than a true number 2 option kind of thing. That's the way that a lot of the league is going right now. There are 2 more names running back wise that I want to bring up real quick though, and see if you have thoughts on them.
Okay.
One is not a free agent yet in Dalvin Cook, but he could be by the end of the day, could be by the end of the week, or could be traded by whoever knows. Dalvin Cook, not necessarily a free agent yet, but all signs seem to point to him being available and being somewhere other than Minnesota this year. And the other name out there that's still a free agent who has kind of been tossed around, and there may be reasons for that, but is still only 24 years old, is Darrell Henderson. He's been a starter in this league. We know he can do everything that a running back needs to do, but he hasn't been in a good situation here the last several years.
Yeah,
but he's still a young enough guy. So we've got Darrell Henderson, Dalvin Cook. Do you see any role for either of those guys somewhere? And if so, where, or what do you think their fantasy value can be this year?
For Dalvin Cook, the obvious place to me is to go and team up with his brother up in Buffalo. And,
that would be interesting. That would be
an interesting situation. I can't recall, two brothers playing that position on the same team. Probably never happened.
I don't think unless it was like the 20s or something when there were 8 teams in a league and
not a whole
everybody
lot of
was signing guys literally out of their
team
backyard.
to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so besides the other Cook, what does Buffalo's running back room bring to the table? Because they lost Singletary, and so if they want to swing a trade like that, that's something that, or like you said, release him, whatever, and he winds up in Buffalo. I think that would be a great fit for him.
I think and we'll talk about D-Hop Nook here in a second, but like DeAndre Hopkins, if you can wait for him to be released and then sign him, where you don't have to commit yourself to a cap number, and you can maybe talk the guy to take an incentive-laden contract or a lower contract. Dalvin Cook, because honestly, one of the reasons Hopkins has been talked about as not being able to go to Buffalo is because of their caps. They don't have a ton of room. They don't have a ton of money right now. But bringing in a guy like Dalvin Cook. Now they did bring in Damian Harris this offseason. Harris, the reason he was available and the reason that New England let him go to someplace in division, obviously should tell you a little bit about what the league thinks about Damian Harris a little bit.
Yeah.
But that would be an interesting pairing to see James Cook and Dalvin Cook on the same team. Maybe see Dalvin on the early downs and then see James on the late downs. That's a very interesting scenario there. One of the other places that's been brought up that I don't necessarily buy as much for Dalvin Cook, he's been brought up and connected with the Dolphins a lot. I don't like that simply because the Dolphins already have 876 different guys on the roster.
We've talked about. Yeah, Miami's got 27 running backs. So
they all can do what they need. Yeah, they don't need anybody more there.
Right. No.
They don't need to. In my opinion, they do not need to expend any more resources on that running back room.
No, because they already need a bus to bring all the running backs to the game. So.
That's not gonna make or break their season as it is anyway. The running back position is not going to be the focal point. Shouldn't be the focal point as to the where they need to improve that roster in Miami. But Cook is a guy who's out there. Wide receiver wise, real quick then here, we'll finish up, talk about some of the wide receiver landscape here. The big name obviously out there is DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep, I got some comments about him.
But there are other guys out there that are still available. Jarvis Landry is one who is not just a name, but a guy who can help a football team. I don't
get excited over Jarvis Landry.
Jarvis Landry is a guy that, fantasy wise, he's probably past his prime in terms of being a real useful piece. But in terms of real football, Jarvis Landry is still a guy I think that can move the sticks. He's always been just a move the sticks guy.
Yeah, there are multiple teams that could use him.
Honestly, I think a team like Green Bay, who has such a young running back or wide receiver room, could use a guy like him to stabilize and lead that receiver room and still then contribute. He could fill a role that they don't necessarily have on staff right now. I think Jarvis Landry can still help some teams. I would be much happier about Jarvis Landry than I would be about, say, Kenny Galladay.
Right, absolutely. And that's not one of the teams I was looking at for him. We talked about Buffalo a moment ago. Mm-hmm. Landry would fit in there. Tennessee, he would fit in there.
Definitely.
Perhaps even the Lions, he'd fit in there. And Atlanta, What do they have behind Drake London? Not a whole lot.
Look at some of the common threads of some of the teams that you just mentioned here. It's either teams that have a young or inexperienced quarterback that a guy like Jarvis Landry, a veteran like that, could really help, or it's places that have young receiving cores or unproven receiving cores like Detroit, where again, a veteran could really help stabilize that. Jarvis Landry has a reputation for being a good teammate and for being a locker room leader.
Put his arms around Williams up there in Detroit, and
that would be the dream. Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. So
get your head on straight, kid.
Yeah, get your head on, and please don't be don't forget where Vegas is. Take it out of your GPS on your phone, whatever else.
Or if you want to use Vegas in Vegas, not in the team facility, apparently, right?
Right. So FanDuel, take that out of your phone.
That's delete the app.
And, So Jarvis Landry, as a fantasy guy, but as a team guy, I could see all those.
I think there's a lot of places he could help a team. Yeah, I think there's a lot of places he could help a team. I'm not necessarily sure there's a ton of places he could help a fantasy team.
Right.
It would take a real specific situation, like possibly the Green Bay situation, to make him fantasy relevant or at least speakable. And I wouldn't look at Jarvis Landry as anything more than a wide receiver four type at this stage of his career.
Right.
But the guy that still has a lot of pull, and the guy that you said you have some comments on, DeAndre Hopkins, who has not signed yet. What's your thoughts there, sir?
My thoughts is, because remember last week we talked about that he had these 3 criteria that a team had to have to get him. Well, apparently you can throw that all out the window because the only thing he's concerned about is who's going to pay him his $15 million a year.
There you go.
And that's all the room for important to him. And I poo-pooed completely that he could come back to Houston. I said there's 0 chance that could happen. But apparently he himself even made a comment that is a possibility. So just about any team that has a wide receiver need can step up and talk to him, because his 3 criteria out the window. Whoever's going to pay him the money, come on down.
Yeah, his 3 criteria boil down to 8 figures on his yearly average. Is what it boils down to. Yeah.
So that just goes to show what's important. Is it winning the championship? Obviously not.
Right.
So we go back to this. You don't know where, you don't know how is it going to affect anybody's team's wide receivers, because now, we are only looking at a couple of possibilities, but that's all out the window now. He could go anywhere that's going to pony up the money.
Right. Anybody who wants to make the moves, that will free up enough money to take him, it looks like could have him right now. And so, it's June. We're post June 1st now. 6-4. Right. 6-4. Post June 1st. And there's been this list of teams that have come out that are gaining cap space right now, that get cap space at this time of year now because of all the post June 1st cuts and that kind of thing. And one of the interesting for a couple of different reasons, but Cleveland keeps coming up in DeAndre Hopkins as like a dark horse contender. But like you just said, dark horse contender basically means you just haven't taken your wallet out of your back pocket yet for him.
Right.
So not only did Cleveland just gain a ton of cap space because of their post June 1st cuts and that kind of thing, they have freed up enough salary cap space to afford that type of contract for DeAndre Hopkins. Now you stack that on top of the idea that they have his previous quarterback who had the best seasons of DeAndre Hopkins' career were spent with that quarterback, Deshaun Watson, in Houston. Plus, now you talk about a team that, on top of all of that, can dangle the carrot out of, hey, we think we're competitive. We can be competitive this season. And especially with adding a piece like DeAndre Hopkins to the mix, he may be a key cog to put them over the top into the playoffs and into actual contention there. We know they've got the running game and the offensive line to do it. We know that if Deshaun Watson, like I've said in the past, is even 80% of the quarterback that Deshaun Watson has been, he'll be the best quarterback Cleveland's had since Bernie Kosar. They've got Nick Chubb still. They've got Amari Cooper, whom we've talked about earlier this hour. They've got they bring in Cedric Tillman. They've got Donovan Peoples-Jones. They've got David Njoku, Jordan Akins at the tight end. They have some weapons. They have some ability there. You add a piece like DeAndre Hopkins now to that mix, that could be a real fun team to watch on offense. They've made moves, brought in defensive line. They bring in Zadarius Smith. They have shored up that defensive front. This is a team that looks like they're going for it. What bigger go for it move could you have than to bring in DeAndre Hopkins, the biggest name still out there, the biggest weapon still out there? I think that's a place where he would fit. I think it's a place where he realistically could sign still.
And if that were to happen, and Peoples-Jones, you can pretty much, take him, back.
You can write him off for the duration of that contract. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I
so,
agree
I like Peoples-Jones, but if that were to happen, he might as well cancel Christmas right in a second.
I like Peoples-Jones and I like Cedric Tillman as well. But yeah, I agree with you completely that if Hopkins were to sign in Cleveland, you can write both of those guys off for the duration of that contract. Now, dynasty wise, I'm still jumping on Tillman and Peoples-Jones. Donovan Peoples-Jones is only 24 years old.
Right. And so that's the key to that. And so,
right. But for going into this
team
season,
that you could possibly take a look at is we talked about the Jets don't fit, but how about the New York Giants? They need
definitely have a need for a big guy on the outside.
Big guy and they believe in Daniel Jones. I'm not too sure if I'm going to dive in with both feet and both arms.
Yeah, you and I are on opposite ends of that team because I am a big Daniel Jones guy. But
okay, so but if that were to happen, then to me Daniel Jones takes a major step forward.
Yes.
And so, because we like his rushing floor, of course, but he hasn't had any wide receivers, and so he would add a quality tight end. He'd add a quality wide receiver to his offense, and so that's a move that because the Giants, even though they made the playoffs, are still third in their division.
They were still third in their division, but they bring back Jones. They bring in Darren Waller, so now they have that threat at tight end. And plus, I mean, I like Daniel Bellinger anyway, but they have Waller now.
I do too. He's that bringing in Waller, killed because I got Daniel Jones or Bellinger.
Yep, I did too. I have him in
my
several
taxi squad, and so that does not help that development one iota.
Yeah, I had him on several fantasy teams, on several dynasty teams. I took him last year thinking, hey, yeah, setting myself up here for a few years. And then here comes Darren Waller. But we've talked about this on this show in the past month or two here too, that every other guy who can catch the ball other than Saquon Barkley on that New York Giant team is seemingly a slot receiver type.
Right.
So bring in DeAndre Hopkins. Use all those slot guys in other ways, but now you could have D-Hop, you could have Darren Waller, you could have all these 87 different slot receivers and Saquon Barkley and Daniel Bellinger. That could really be a big boost to that team. I agree with you completely. That would be a fun spot to see DeAndre Hopkins land in terms of a real football fit and in terms of a place where his fantasy value would not take a dip.
Anybody's wide receivers room in fantasy.
No. And not only would his fantasy value remain high, but he would raise the fantasy value then, like you said, of Daniel Jones.
So then, maybe I could step into the car with you and, take a spin around with Daniel Jones. So
I'm carpool karaoke all day long with Daniel Jones. I am on him. I like him. Listen, 5 dudes last year, 5 quarterbacks last year ran for 700 yards. Nobody else even ran for more than 500.
700 and wasn't it 705 or something?
708, something like that. Yeah. But no one else even had over 500. And that was Marcus Mariota was the closest to that. And like we said, he's a backup now.
I saw that exact same stat.
Daniel Jones is a good running quarterback. If he can throw the ball for some more touchdowns, he would
They only had
he was
15.
already a top 12 fantasy quarterback because of his rushing and because his efficiency has gotten better year over year. You get him somebody now that he can throw the ball to for some scores. We just added Darren Waller. You add somebody like a DeAndre Hopkins now, Daniel Jones goes through the roof. I would love that. I would love to see that kind of a matchup there. I think that would be a great.
We talked about best ball
great
stacks.
thing to
How about
watch.
that?
Yeah. Right.
Because nobody's rushing except you, apparently, rushing out to draft Daniel Jones, and so you can get him.
Yeah,
a little
if
bit
you're
later.
if you're in a league with me, you might have to jump a round or two to get because I will be big on Daniel Jones this year. I'll just put that out there for my friends.
That's something that you could take a look at if perchance it comes to fruition. And we didn't talk about any stacks with a tight end, but Daniel Jones and Waller. There's no reason why you couldn't make that stack.
No, you could get that. That should be a very affordable stack, and possibly a very lucrative one. Speaking of that barren tight end position there, that could be a real fun one there. All right, that's going to do it for us today. I don't think we need to. I mean, it goes without saying that Sammy Watkins is still out there and he's going to explode through the roof for fantasy purposes. Let's finally put him to bed.
Yeah, teams definitely lost his GPS.
All right. So why don't you tell us what you've got going on here, Kevin, and where we can find you real quick before we head out of here and turn everybody loose.
This was a pretty busy week, for me, because I did the show with you last week, then I did the fantasy baseball show, and then on Tuesday I was a part of the No Credentials Required, and if you happen to see that, I was asked what my thoughts were on the Michael Jordan flu game, and I was animated. I was pointed in my opinion. So you might want to get over there and check that out.
Download that episode of No Credentials Required.
As a matter of fact, that little snippet, they posted that on the internet. So, anyway, so we did that, and then the next day we had the Belly Up NBA Super Show. So I was a part of that. And did an article last week of first summer waiver pickups.
Yep.
And so that's out there. There'll be another one coming up this week. You can be pretty sure about that. And tonight, also, once again, the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show, 7 p.m. I will be there for that. And of course, on Twitter, Kevin62 WILSEA. Always reach out.
There it is. All right. You can check me out at Twitter at STT Chase FFB. I will have an update late tonight on who wins this big matchup between myself and Kevin in the Fantasy Baseball League. Also, get over to bellyupfantasysports.com. Check out not just all the great fantasy baseball content, not just all the great fantasy football content. My rankings are out now for Dynasty rookie drafts. You can find those rankings there. I'll be I'll be writing up articles on all my top 10 picks there from Dynasty rookie drafts. So you can find that over there at Belly Up Fantasy Sports as well. Plus, I'll be probably coming out with some more rankings this week, possibly a best ball rank as well. So get over there and check out all that content.
Check that out for sure. Yep. As we mentioned, get over there, check out the best ball tournament on Belly Up Fantasy. Help out the kids. And
there you go.
Have fun.
Sign up for the best. Yeah, sign up for the Belly Up Bowl best ball tournament there. Help the kids at Alex's Lemonade Stand, the charity for childhood cancer. Plus, maybe win yourself some bragging rights there and some money as well.
Right. So, then you could see for yourself, do Kevin and Chase know what they're talking about? Well, you'll be able to see it.
You'll have an opportunity to take us on head to head. All right.
That's right.
Well, until next week then, folks, we'll see you back here. Same bat time, same bat channel. But until then, for Kevin and myself, we're going to wish you good luck and everything. Good luck if you are best ball drafting. Good luck if you are doing your dynasty drafts. But until next week, we will tell you again, Slanjava, everybody.
Have a